I'll call to order this special call city council meeting on Monday, July the 12th, 2021, approximately 6 p.m. Our first order of business is an invocation. I pledge allegiance to Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd invite anybody who would like to join me in prayer, please do so. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to gather here tonight to do the business of the city. May the committee business that's done tonight be pleasing in your sight and continue to build a city that glorifies you. These things we're asking your name. Amen. And now I'd ask for anybody who would like to stand and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to our meeting tonight. This is a special call meeting that we will have prior to the regular scheduled committee meetings that will follow right after this. So I appreciate you being here as well as anyone that is attending remotely. We appreciate that. First item on our agenda is under new business. There's 3 items for the executive sessions. Mr. Freeman, you want to try that one?
At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to consider contractual matters related to ceiling construction, CSN, as well as receive legal advice as related to CSI contract, as allowed by state statute section 30-4-70A.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. King. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to executive session say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, we will go into the executive session upstairs in the conference room. Yes, he did A, B, and C. I'm here with, yeah, he mentioned ceiling and SC. Come back to the sorry. That's okay. Damn.
Well, now we're covered.
We are returning from executive session back to our special call city council meeting at approximately 8:04 p.m. Mr. Craven, would you like to report out for us, please?
Yes, no actions were taken and no votes were taken.
Thank you, sir. We're now at public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, is anyone remotely would like to make public comment? Hearing none. Council request. Council request at this time. Hearing none. What do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
Okay. Motion, Mr. Manny, second.
Second.
Second, Mrs. King. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned from special call city council meeting close to 8:05 p.m. I'd like to call the July 12th Recreation Committee meeting to order. It's approximately 8 to 10 p.m. A little delay because we had other matters to take before council as executive session. It lasted a little longer than we anticipated. Members present, Mr. Matney, Mr. Reynolds, myself, Dale White, City Administrator, Mr. Brandon Madden, and Recreation Director, Mr. Mark Pimelander. If you have any public comment, I don't think you see anyone from the public here unless somebody is in there. Anybody, Brandon?
No, sir, Mr. Chair.
No public comment this time. We'll give you an opportunity toward the end of this meeting for another opportunity. So, moving right along, the next item is the reading and approval of the minutes of May the 3rd. What I hear on those?
Move for approval.
Have a motion, Mr. Matthew, to be approved as written. Second. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as distributed? Aye. I appreciate they approved. All right, the next item is reports, communication, city officers, Recreation Director, Mr. Pimelander.
evening, guys. Just kind of a couple things to bring your attention. August 28th, we're going to try to do something a little different. We're going to do an opening day of baseball for the fall, as well as our football jamboree. We've done it all. We've never done it all at one park and one location before, so we're going to try that this year. Also, I'm going to tell Matthew, thank you. They've done a good job at City Park. Talked to Orange Electric today, and the poles, the decorative poles, we're going to get rid of the wooden poles that are in the parking lot. COVID has gotten backed up with some of that stuff. So the poles themselves that are in, now they're just waiting on the fixtures to be getting here. So they might start as early as next week to finish that project out. And so, again, we're getting rid of the old wooden poles that are in the parking lot in City Park. Still looking at trying to hire somebody at the Sports Center for the marketing position. We've had a couple interviews, but we're still interviewing. So, but everything else is going good. Any questions, Mr. Black?
Anybody have a question? Come on, Mr. Madden.
And this may not be a question for Mr. Cumlander as much as city administrator, or maybe a combination of the two. But I mean, it's a sales position. It's not really marketing. And I know that gets confusing, but this is about selling memberships and increasing membership to the sports center. So in the private sector, Mr. Chairman, generally a sales position like that would have a base salary plus a commission. Are we planning on offering this person a commission as essentially the membership director for the sports center?
Mr. Madden, no.
Is it we can't or we won't?
Right now, the budget is set for a salary range without commission. What staff can do is reevaluate personnel line item in the budget to see if there's a amount that can be set aside for a commission and bring that back.
And Mr. Chair, I would ask that staff does that. There really shouldn't be a financial impact on the budget if we have the position itself already budgeted for a base salary. Any commission would come strictly from memberships that are sold. So we wouldn't necessarily be looking at a budgetary impact because we would be dealing with new memberships to the sports center. And if we're trying to increase memberships, and if we have somebody in that position that becomes successful, that provides that incentive for them to continue selling memberships. And hopefully we would get to the point where we're not subsidizing the sports center's budget and it can become self-sufficient. I mean, if we were in the private sector, that's the way this position would go. And Mr. Chairman, I would request that we request staff to at least examine that and return to committee next month with some figures and a recommendation.
I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Madden. Mr. Madden, while we're on this, is there a job description currently available for this? I know that position has changed the criteria over the years several times. Is there a current job description for this position already in place? Does it need to be new and enacted?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think in staff's doing their due diligence for advertising this position, they updated the job description to fit for what they were looking for at the sports center. I can provide a copy of the job description to full council so you all can see the updated version.
Yeah, going on what Mr. Madden said, the committee decides this, that I guess would be a part of this job description, correct?
Likely, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Administrator, but a change in the salary would likely go to finance and policy because there would have to be some amendments made in other documents. So I would probably need to defer to a combination of Mr. Madden and Mr. Reynolds. But I would imagine it would have to go to finance and policy if we made the recommendation for that.
If we went this way, we would still have to have a new job description, like cover all avenues.
Well, the job description would need to be updated if commissions are included in it. And unless the budget increases, there would be no need for an action on council's end unless the budget increased for that department for this current fiscal year. But I would like to have some time to have Bart, Holly, and I kind of brainstorm through the way the commissions would be set up, because this is still a governmental entity. It's not an enterprise, so it operates a little differently. And from an accounting standpoint, we need to make sure that it's set up in a way that we're not getting in any type of issues.
That falls back into you and recreation, Director. This committee does not do the hiring or anything, no, there's actual recommendations from y'all. For a position that's put into place like that. Y'all will be the one to make a decision, bring it to this committee, will then therefore take it before council. Is that correct? Anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Reynolds, you got anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to mention, do your due diligence on how to handle that accounting with the NLD because we aren't enterprise. Other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Goodman? You have anything, Mr. Mayor, you'd like to discuss, recreation?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, that's item 4. We'll move right on to the next item, which is unfinished business, and I don't see anything on my documentation for unfinished business. We have one item on new business, and this is pertaining to bocce ball. I got a call from one of our citizens, and he was here earlier, and I referred him to Mr. Coonlander, and I think Mr. Coonlander met with the individual, and I'll let Mark take it over, or Brandon, or both of you, on what the findings were, what y'all found out, and what the decision of the recreation director department is.
Yes, sir, Mr. Black, I met Mr. Calabrese out there as well, and he kind of showed, and I met, first of all, I met Emily and Matt, met out there first, kind of see where we could put it at City Park. So we came with an area, actually also came up with a budget, how much it's going to cost. And so then I met Mr. Calabrese out there and see if that was going to be okay for him, and he seemed to think that was going to be a good location for it as well. So if anybody knows where the batting cage are at City, it's going to be on the other side of that fenced-in area there, and it's going to be it's a monument right there. A guy that passed away some years back, and it's going to be placed right there. Won't mess with the tombstone. That's basically where it is. It's going to be on the other side of it. That's what we're looking at doing. And so some of the budget, we're going to kind of break it up. I kind of let maybe Brandon talk about that. Me and Matthew came together, and between the two departments, we've got the money to do it if council chooses to do that. So and part of that money we put in the Green County Redevelopment Authority is going to get the city will get reimbursed on some of this, at least half of it.
Anything you like that, Mr. Matt?
No, Mr. Chair.
Any questions, comments from the committee? Mr. Reynolds?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Coonlander, the grant total would be the 6,000 or
It'll cover half of it.
half of the 6,000?
Yes, sir.
City's investment.
At least probably pay for the turf. That's what's the high end of AstroTurf, the biggest expense.
Are there any plans to, if you're putting it that close to those current batting cages, you have one cage at City Park. Eventually, I think you'd like to add cages there. When you have 3 or 4 fields at City.
It's 3 fields there. We have 2 batting cages at Sunset, 1 batting cage at Springfield, and 1 at City. One's at Sunset. What I've seen my kids out there playing is it gets used probably the most for the Sunset Park. So, which that one is good. That one's in good shape in the City. It's been there at least 25. Been there a while. So that's something we can definitely look at to maybe add.
Yeah, I think if I'm expanding on the batting cages, there would be a good use of real estate right there, but with doing the bocce ball courts, that any sort of expansion.
No, sir, it will not, because we're not actually on that field. We're on the outside of the fence there. So
Okay.
it should not mess with it all.
That's all that is there. No, sir.
Mr. Matt, you got anything?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, so the total estimate cost from you and Mr. Cleveland was both works for the whole construction cost, which is approximately $6,000, and so we get at least half of this back from redevelopment
Yes, sir.
because it's a senior program.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And that decision to look at the senior center because it is a senior request and it makes sense to put it at the senior location. I talked hard about this after I was supposed to several months ago, Bart looked at it, and I looked at it, and found we could get it up there. So there'll be something to accommodate the seniors. Now they got all their different activities, pickleball, and we get this done, volleyball, and all the other activities. Good for the seniors. I think they appreciate it. What's the pleasure of the committee on this volleyball and the amount of approximately $6,031?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to send to full council a recommendation of approval for $6,031.40 for basketball courts to be placed at the senior center.
I've got a motion, Mr. Reynolds, that we send this to full council for a vote for the basketball court for the seniors at the senior center. And amount of approximately $6,031.40. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second, Mr. Matthew. Any discussions, corrections, additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, this will go to the next full council meeting for recommendation out of this committee for approval of the placement of the basketball court at the city park. I see nothing else under new business unless you have something with Finland or man, you got anything? Okay, hearing none, I've got next item is public comments. So I've got anybody dialed in for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
No one coming in for public comment. I like committee concerns. Committee concerns. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I was just following up on that. Just let's, as we have done a great job of updating the covers at Sunset, which look fantastic, by the way, for what I use. Let's look at the batting cages moving forward. Not necessarily this budget year, but do some plans on how can we add more batting cages to each field. That would be on one thing. This one actually doesn't apply to you, but as I visited City Park as well, those fields have been in fantastic shape. Even with all the rain, all the mess that we've had going on, the fields have looked fantastic. So I appreciate that, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Conlon. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Anything, Mr. Matt?
No, sir.
Mr. Matt, I got a couple things. One of them, I think we wanted to discuss by email. One of them is the new playground at the local center or the city park there and the lighting for the playground versus the generator.
Yes, sir, Mr. Black. On the turf, Bart is working with the contractor to have the turf improved at the city center playground or the playground on City Center Drive. For the lighting for the playground area, because it's dark during the beach and Fridays and kids are still playing on it, I've discussed with Public Works the addition of lighting on the shelter that will be bright enough to illuminate the playground area. So hopefully we can have that installed by this Beach and Friday, if not the following Beach and Friday event.
These lights are going to replace the illuminate the playground. They're going to be where you can turn them off after the event's closed at night and not be burning it all out.
No, it'll be by a light switch.
They will be turned off whenever the event's over.
Mm.
The residents on the backside will not be hampered by the light.
No.
That's all I have on that. Okay, no more committee concerns. Want to hear the chairman?
So moved.
You got a motion, Mr. Reynolds, and a second, Mr. Manny. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like saying no, I just appreciate everyone's attendance and all. Next committee is public works.
All right, I call this meeting Public Works Committee meeting to order. Committee members here, Carol King, Michael Reynolds, of course, our city administrator, Mr. Madden. Excuse me. Start this meeting off with any public comments.
Mr. Chair, no one's indicated online that they would like to speak.
All right. And what do I hear about the minutes from our last meeting?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Let's have it. All right, next we have reports and communications from Mr. Matt Freeman.
Yeah.
All right, so we finished out the 2020-21 fiscal year. All of the divisions of public works, which includes streets, parks, sewer, administration, and sanitation, all came in with money left over, which is a good job. I'd like to
By me.
No, it's, you know, when you budget appropriately, and you work within the confines and you come out and there's money left over, it's good, especially when we achieve a lot of things that we didn't anticipate. I would like to give an update for the shelter lighting. That's gonna happen this week for the city center playground. It will be up in time for the Beach and Friday. We're gonna have floodlights that are by switch inside our main control room, but that will be up by the end of the week. If any of you have been out to City Park, you may notice that there's no grass at City Park 1, at City Field 1 right now. While it's always been green out there, City Field 1 has always been clover and weeds. And so we've gotten rid of all that, and it's gonna be, we're anticipating the next 2 weeks to have it all resodded with Bermuda to be one of our premier fields.
At the city one.
City 1. That's the full-size one that a lot of the teenagers and it's your biggest field. All right. Brandon wants me to touch on the wet weather study. REWA has been conducting a wet weather study for their collection system and all the sub-districts collection system. There was a public hearing a couple weeks ago in regards to new details and specifications and requirements that REWA is going to insist on all the sub-districts to adhere to. The public hearing, there was a few of us municipalities that did show up and made a contention that we weren't provided the information and adequately in enough time to review it. So they've suspended the public hearing for a month. We're going to be going into that in it'll be in August, or actually no, it's the last week of July. It's when the new public hearing will be. A couple of items that need to be brought to your attention is that one of the historically the city of Mauldin has only maintained the main lines, the manholes and the pump stations. REWA's new specifications require us to take the service laterals from the main to the property line. It may not seem like a lot, but it's something that's never been maintained. They're very old and very leaky. So there's going to be an inherent cost associated with taking over, repairing, just even investigating and mapping all these services. 10,000 plus services is going to be extremely costly. And it should be anticipated that we're going to need a different sewer jet because ours doesn't go in services. We'll need another sewer camera because ours doesn't go in services. And then we're going to have a lot more administrative monies in order to, we're going to have to GPS locate and put all these into our GIS system. So it's going to be a lot of data logging and there are going to be some costs. Some of the other requirements would be emergency response plans, capacity management and operation maintenance manual. I've gone ahead and just finalizing both those documents. I was going to bring them in front of you guys next month once we have the final say from REWA. But I wanted to let you guys know what was going on. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer.
Do you have any rough estimate of what you think those additional costs are?
Sure. A push camera for services,
you know, you're gonna get one of the, like, the rigid design, like what a standard plumber would have. Those cost anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000. A jetter for services is in the ballpark of $40,000. Be honest with you, the overhead cost for just GPSing and mapping all of the services is probably what you'll ultimately spend the most money on. Because it's not, I mean, to find a manhole is easy. There's a manhole, right? Some houses, their service, their clean outs underneath their house. So there's no way to get in there to, like, you know, locate it like a water line or like a power line or a phone line where you can hook up a locator and just trace it. There's going to be a lot of digging and spotting to pinpoint its location from the main to the property line. And so I would anticipate that that's upwards of 6 figures. Plus soft cost of labor and equipment that's already in-house.
Any other questions? Ronald?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we look at additional costs, could you also provide in your update in the next council meeting or committee meeting comparative analysis on other cities or sewer fees, or public works fees, mostly sewer fees, as we're looking at where we lie and what we charge for as compared to other cities and municipalities around us?
I certainly can.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
And then the one last thing, if there aren't any more questions about the REWA stuff, are there any? All right, I'd like to give a little update. You know that we're in the midst of a relocation. Public Works is excited about their new facility. It's a beast. It's big. There's a lot of opportunity there. Today's technically day 7, or business day, that we've been able to, like, work in there. We've gotten all the trash out. We have both sanitation and parks completely relocated and set up and operating out of the facility. This week, both sewer and streets are going to be relocating. And wish you could add them in Christmas ordinance next week and still have a week to spare by the end of the month. But I anticipate once we get in there and get everything set up, I'd love an opportunity to set up a tour for council, so you guys can see exactly what we got.
Well, I hope Public Works is excited about the opportunity in there.
You know, at first, I 50 grown men. Change is hard, but you know, every day it's, you know, they start to see the grand scheme. They buy in a little bit more. But I'm telling you, it's a big site. There's a lot of opportunity there. It's going to be a great facility for the city and for the future.
No, I agree that the council's investment in Public Works, not just for today, but 10 years from now, was smart by council.
I was out there Saturday, so if you hear a report of somebody sneaking around, looking around. That was me.
Well, I was out there from like 7:30 till about like 1.
I was there probably like at 3.
Hours.
I was there.
So much have been working over the weekends as well.
I had my son out, he got some ice cream from over here, pops, so we went over there and I just didn't go around. Very impressive. Another question? All right, let's move on. There's no unfinished business. We're going on to new business. CLE construction guaranteed maximum price. The contract to be forwarded to, potentially be forwarded. Do I have a motion, or actually, we'll discuss that real quick.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So what you have before you is an amendment to the contract for rehabbing the East Standing Springs Road property with Sealy Construction. They've designed a number of improvements in the 2 phases. And so what's being requested of the committee is a recommendation of approving the GMP amendment to full council.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the GMP amendment with the construction and rehabilitation of Public Works headquarters.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, those in favor, we have discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I look at this, the GMP totals were 298.85 for both phase 1 and phase 2. My motion is forwarding to full council the phase 1 and phase 2. Say that in the amendment in the motion, but want to clarify. I was making a motion for phase 1 and phase 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to make the recommendation that prior to our July 19th meeting, that the amendment be looked at and resolved to include the not to exceed dollar amount, Mr. Madden, as well as the issues related to the assumptions on number 14 of the handout that we have about the contingency. And then the wording where they're referring to it being a lump sum offer and not a GMP.
Yes, we'll contact Sealy to make sure we get clarification that this is a GMP amendment. This is a maximum amount, and to clarify that there's no need for a contingency when you have a guaranteed maximum price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Madden.
Anything else? All right, with that in mind, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign? The ayes have it. All right, move on to the next. All right, the 2022 road paving list.
Yep, so it's that time again where we proposed what roads we paved in this next fiscal year. It may seem strange because we're still paving roads from last year. But they've done a good job. We've allocated approximately $243,000. The fiscal match is just north of $191,000. Gives us about $435,000. The IMS report that was approved last year. Actually, no, it would have been January of this year. It would have been 2021. Yeah, so it would have been this year. Was a 5-year paving list. But as you remember, we budgeted more in this cycle than what they put into their program for paving per year. So the roads that we're recommending for this fiscal year actually fall in year 3 of the plan that you guys approved in January. Attach the roads to this agenda item. See that we're in a few areas around the city. Some of the roads on here are pretty bad. But these are the recommendations. And we're just going to adhere to the IMS report and follow down their list.
So there's been no change to that report. We're going to say it's following it this year, just as if the year never changes. Continuing on, correct?
And continuing on, yep.
I do have a motion. Asking to have a motion.
So moved. Make a motion to recommend city council approve the FY22 road paving list as provided.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Clayton, does this cover all of year 3 based on last year's numbers? So based on the numbers that we had last year, is this are all of these the roads that we will cover based with the amount provided?
If I can, Mr. Chair, Mr. Reynolds. So the budget numbers that IMS used for their study does not match up exactly with the process used by Co-Transco. So the IMS report served as kind of a baseline to help put together a list of roads. The IMS report the council approved had a budget, an annual budget number of 2.1 million. But because their recommendations on the improvements to the roads are different than what Co-Transco actually does, the city's initial investment of $2.7 million stretched longer. It went through years 1 and 2. And so these roads, we won't know on this list how far to go down until Co-Transco actually maps out the roads. And what staff did for year 3 is go strictly by the PCI of each road, so that the roads that are in the worst condition PCI wise for year 3 will be paid first, and then work the way down the list. There may be an opportunity once Co-Transco goes through and stakes out each road. They may come back and say, hey, to complete all of the roads on the list, it would cost X amount of dollars. Once they share that information, then we can pass that back to council to see if council would like to make any fiscal adjustment to the amount of money they're putting into roads for paving this year.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. That was a poorly asked question on my end, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you. That was all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So back in March of this year, we amended the paving list because some roads that were identified did not need to be paved, so we bumped those off and added roads. So on that list for Mauldin, we're currently still paving those streets, and we'll go through that list, and then this will be year 3. Okay,
That is correct.
excellent, thank you.
Any more discussion? With that,
Based on last year's number that Co-Transco did, how far down this list do you think the 435 ... will go?
All right, it's a very open-ended
It
question.
is very open-ended.
Because when they evaluate a road, roads vary in width, whether they have curbs, not have curbs, whether they're doing full depth or just the surface. It isn't, and it's exactly what Mr. Van says. It isn't until they come out there, whether this stretch road is 22,000 or 60,000. We don't know until they look at it and then determine based on their paving what they recommend and what they're going to charge. And then the asphalt costs are variable. I mean, if I was just to guess, but you know that I'm just giving you a guess. I would say that I do not believe that what we have budgeted will cover all these roads.
That's what I was assuming. Not that long shot. Thank you, Mr. Fleming.
Right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
None? Other than that, those in favor of forwarding the road paving list to full council, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Ayes have it. Move on to the next item. All right, signalization, Murray Drive and Devon Drive, page 11 and 12. Madam, you kind of want to see this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was a request from council to identify the steps with the South Carolina Department of Transportation on creating a new intersection at Murray Drive and Devon Drive and signalizing that intersection. Staff had a meeting with SCDOT to discuss a couple of matters, including this. Based on that discussion, the process is outlined in the agenda packet. We would have to have a conceptual drawing submitted to DOT. Then a traffic study would be needed for the city to fund. That would be provided to DOT. They would review that traffic study with their standards and guidelines and make a recommendation on whether or not to proceed. If they come back with a recommendation to proceed, staff will request funding from council on whether or not they want to proceed with the project, because it will be initiated by the city. So the signal and any of the road work needed to extend Devon Drive to intersect with Murray Drive will be a responsibility of the city. And then from there, we would, of course, have to bid the project out, obtain a permit from DOT, and then proceed. DOT would like to have traffic counts conducted in the fall as opposed to right now. they would be looking to see if there's enough traffic counts on Murray Drive to justify having a signal there and crossing Highway 276 to intersect with Devon Drive.
Mr. Madden, in this case, this does not have to go to council because this can fall within this first piece of it, at least under your limits, correct?
That's correct. For conceptual drawing and a traffic studies, that could be absorbed in the current budget.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What would your estimated cost be for conceptual drawings and traffic study?
More than likely, it would be less than $5,000 because this isn't a complex area. There's a couple lanes of traffic, and then you have Murray Drive. So it's just really getting the traffic counts. They're models that engineering firms can use where they can provide DOT relatively quickly. It's just the time associated from them and their employees to come up with the cost. If the committee would want to move forward, provide direction that states that if it did go, if the cost was more than the threshold allowed to the city administrator, then it would be brought back to council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just more of a comment, I guess. Since I don't guess this needs a recommendation from committee, more just for our information, but the way I look at this, you've got a 4-lane highway and putting additional, well, let me back up. So we already know there's the new road design at Sunset once we have city center coming in. So that could possibly, most likely be a light there. So you have a light at the main intersection, the second biggest intersection of the county street. And then potentially another one at Sunset, and then potentially another at Von Murray, and then another at Millwood. So to me, I would like to wait and see what happens at Sunset prior to putting any additional funding and costs into a traffic study. You know, there's no doubt at 5 o'clock, it's almost impossible to turn left at that stop sign, but for me, I know ways, other routes to get around that. So that's just my feeling on it. Again, I think it would slow traffic down in an area that may not necessarily need to be slowed at this point until we see what happens with City Center and Sunset.
So, so one of the reasons is with the traffic coming through here, there's probably a high probability that DOT will want an additional traffic light somewhere else. So by looking at this in advance, this gives us a potential option of putting it where we want it versus where they might put it as we're learning. If we can get it out there first, we might have a better chance of having some control over it. What that also allows direct across, straight across, connecting this neighborhood and all the neighborhoods that go all the way through that big Knollwood Drive and all the way to the other intersection, to where we give them a light out and a direct shot to the city center as far as getting across, even if there's high traffic, we can go straight across. So that's the idea behind this. Because we don't want as a stoplight maybe at the Knollwood Drive right there. This is to look at
So your contention, Mr. Chairman, is that to keep SCDOT from putting one at Knollwood Drive, we should preempt it by trying to traffic study Murray Drive.
correct, or above. If you put it, I mean, to me, that'd be the logical place. But with the way traffic is coming, the way that we have so much traffic, the way it's getting backed up to that point anyways, during rush hour, that's where you start looking at putting in additional traffic.
Well, I think I would encourage Mr. Madden to pull council individually against their opinions on it, since it's below the 5,000, potentially below the 5,000 threshold.
That, I'd be fine with that. There's no action to be taken, correct? Correct. All right. With that, let's move on. Any public comment? And do we have any online?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any committee concerns?
No, sure.
Okay. I would like to make a comment from, was over at, not last week, but the week before, over Beach and Fridays. So our Public Works Director, Mr. Fleeman, going around picking up trash. I want to give you a comment for that. It just says a lot about you, that you're willing to walk the same shoes as anybody else, and I really appreciate that, and I want to grab you, but I missed you later that evening, so I wanted to say thank you. All right, and with that, what do I hear about adjournment?
Second.
We got a second here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Okay, it's 8:50. I'm gonna call the third committee of the night, Public Safety, for tonight, July 12th to order. Present, you have myself, Carol King, Mr. Dale Black, Mr. Jason Craylin, as well as our city administrator, and all of our present in chambers. We have Chief McComb, the fire department, and Chief Miller, police department, and Judge.
She's right, being promoted to.
Judge Martin is with us online. So while you're getting that, I'm gonna move on to public comment. Do we have any public comment? So I don't really see public tonight. Do we have anything online?
No, Madam Chair. Judge Martin, can you hear? Can you speak? She's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move to the third item, which is reading and approval of the minutes from June the 7th. What's committee's pleasure?
Move to accept it as approved.
Got a motion to accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted for June 7th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, none opposed, motion carries. That leads us to the reports from our city officers. Chief McComb, you're first on the agenda. I'll let you come tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. I'd like to go over our budget for last year. Like I said, as of June this year, I said it was 11% under budget. So where was that fire department? So any comment, questions, or anything on that? The second item is really your recommendation on it. We're looking at what we call our shift captains. They used to be on the engine. They used to ride on the engine. Now we got them in actually with a pickup truck. We call that battalion. So we're wanting to change. No, it's going to change it to battalion chief instead of captain. Just move it to battalion chief. No salary increase. No, nothing's changing with that. It'll stay exactly the same. Job description will be the same.
And Chief, if you could explain to committee, which they're probably already aware, but this is common practice for most fire departments to have the battalion chief versus just the title as captain.
That's another thing we're going to try to be consistent with everything in Greenville County, because that's what we're using as battalion chief. This also goes to comply with ISO because they want the chief officer to be on scene. And that's one reason why we put them in a mobile unit instead of riding on the engine where they're committed at, put them in a pickup. Their mobile will go all in our service area.
Any questions for Chief, as this, again, is only a title change, so it would not require any approval from committee or council. So if you have any questions, now's your time. Then, Dale's grinning, he must like it.
Sounds good to me.
We always like being under budget as long as you have the funding to do what you need to do. So,
Thank y'all for
great
that.
job.
Yeah. Also, I just want to inform y'all that our status on our new 2 engines and our aerial, we had our engine committee, they went up in mid-May to do the pre-con at Wisconsin. They're online to be built. They should be here approximately end of October, 1st of November. And then the aerial committee went up in mid-June. So that should be here probably January, delivering 3 new trucks.
Great news.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the update on the training that was, in, I think, the administrative report last week or the week before, where we were doing on-site training, I think out at, was it at Belmont?
Belmont.
Yes.
ma'am.
Looked very hot.
It was hot. Actually, the very first day was good because it was raining that day.
Okay. Any questions for Chief McComb?
I have
All right, thank you so
Thank you.
much. Judge Martin, good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The only thing that I need to report out on tonight is in reference to my budget. The judicial department finished out this last fiscal year 22% under budget. So be glad to take any questions in reference to that.
Judge Martin.
Ma'am?
I said, Holly's smiling, I'm not sure if it's in reference to that or
Well,
not.
good. Well, good. I hope you're happy, Holly.
They're making it sound final. We're not done.
She said, she said it's not final.
It's going to be close though, ma'am.
We're just giving Holly a hard time. Any questions for Judge Martin before we let her go? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chief Miller. Would you give us your report, please?
Ms. King and committee members, as of right now, we are 8% under budget for last year. We would also like to, it went out in the administrator's report, we'd like to invite all council members and department heads to the cookout on Saturday. It's going to be at Sunset Park from 11 to 1. It's, we're going to have the fire department there. We're going to have hot dogs, chips, drinks. Kids will be playing on the playground. Officers will be there to hang out with the kids. It'll be for that area. In the future, we're going to move it to another area so we can involve the whole city eventually. Also, an update on the vehicles. We just ordered 18 cars. They should be here in October. We had to go ahead and jump on it because of the production. We had to get it because it's been shut down for so long. So we had to go ahead and get them ordered. So they're looking at October. And that's all I got. If y'all have any questions.
Can you remind us the night of National Night Out? It's in the first part of August, right?
It's the 3rd of August. It's
Third,
gonna be-
okay.
Yes, ma'am. It's going to be that Tuesday. We'll have National Night Out. Officer Madden is just going above and beyond. We're going to have all kinds of stuff there. We're probably going to have to move it to Sunset Park next year. And because his imagination's running wild and everything's coming together, and it's looking really good.
It's looking like a great event. It always is, but this year, he's done a fabulous job.
Yes, we got food, we got entertainment, we got pet and zoo, we got a dartboard, a 20-foot inflatable dartboard. We got a dunk tank for the fire chief to
I
sit
saw
in.
that.
And me, and we got inflatables. And the community, the business community is really coming together with us to help out. I'd like to thank Holly for all her guidance through this process.
Any questions for Chief Miller? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, we have no unfinished business and we have no new business. So that brings us back to public comment. Seeing nothing online, Mr. Martin?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, then do we have any committee concerns tonight? All right, what do we have on adjournment?
So moved.
Motion to have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call the Finance and Policy Committee meeting to order. The time is exactly 9:00. It is July 12th, Monday, it's the fourth committee meeting, members present, myself, Michael Jones, Ms. Carol King, Ms. Diane Kuzma, city staff representatives, Mr. Brandon Matthews, as well as Holly Abercrombie, Mark Putnam, and those all. First item we have is public comment. Are there any online? So we see there any emphatically?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Madam. Hearing none. Next item will be reading and approval of minutes. These are the minutes dated June 7th, 2021.
Motion to approve as submitted.
I have a motion to approve as submitted. I have a
Second.
I have a motion to approve as submitted and a second discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Next item is going to be reports and communications from city administrator first, Mr. Madden. you're up.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, for the closeout of fiscal year 2021 is ongoing on the budget. Budget just started for fiscal year 2022, so there's not much there. I do want to make sure the committee knows that a end of the year report will be coming forth to the full council that will outline our fiscal year and how we closed out the year. And also we'll give an update on all the council goals. So that'll be coming, should be by the end of the month, but it may be mid-August, but it'll be the end of the year report citywide for full council. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. You expect the report to be by the next committee meeting?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none. Finance Director, Ms. Holly Abercrombie, you're up. You're almost closed out.
Good evening. The budgets look good. They're not final. We're still doing accruals. We will have, probably in the next day or two, we'll have the June property taxes in. So we did really well on property taxes, as well as the next couple of weeks, the June hospitality and accommodations revenues will be coming in, and that particular line item is looking really good for June. So, that's good. Other than that, just still trying to get all the numbers in and get you a number mid-August.
Committed, it's on record.
If
Okay.
you have any specific questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions, Ms. Abercrombie? Very good. Ms. Abercrombie, do we have any governmental accountability stuff coming down the pipe? We always have the stuff for when the holiday comes up, there's always some random change. Do we know of anything off the top of your head coming for this year?
No, I do not.
Nothing that would change our book drastically?
I do not.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Abercrombie, that's all I have. Next item is Director Mark Putnam, HR Director Mark Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to let you know that we are on schedule with the police department chief search. Everything's moving forward with that, and the month of August will be very busy for us as we do our employee evaluations for every employee throughout the city. So that'll be a very busy time, not only for HR, but for the department heads and their supervisors. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. As a process guy, I can certainly appreciate the process you guys are employing for the police chief. It's a big position for the city, but I just want to commend you and Mr. Madnock, as well as the Public Safety Committee as a whole, how you guys are handling that process, being obscenely thorough. So recognition and appreciation from this chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. Any questions for Mark? Hearing none. We have no unfinished business. Our new business, this should be a pretty quick meeting, by the way. We have a bunch of stuff. The next month's meeting is coming up, but this is the review of City Ordinance 2-33. We've talked about this a couple of times in anticipation conversation here, but wanted to bring this up because in the last committee meeting, we had asked Mr. Madden to report us what other counties and municipalities are doing with the participation in person meetings. So that is in your packet. Do we have any questions or comments on what Mr. Madden submitted or any other comments to this item? Ms. King?
Mr. Chair, I've voiced my opinion on this for the last two meetings, I think, at the committee level. And, I would just like to see, it's complicated. Because I understand with using, it's 2021 and there's other means of communication. However, I also think it's extremely important that we're all present in council chambers for the two nights, the first Monday and the third Monday. That when you sign on the line and you're elected as an elected official, that becomes part of your calendar and you do not claim vacations during those time periods. If you do, then you're going to miss a meeting. So I just feel very strongly that you need to be here in person. And I get it if there's an illness, and I know that's why this ordinance was first put into place to accommodate a council member many years ago. And I think that's great, and I don't disagree with that. But I would just like to see something in place that for all scheduled meetings that we should be held accountable and we should be in council chambers. But I'm only one vote, as the mayor would say, so perhaps we need to forward this to council just for input to see, or Mr. Madden could do a polling of council in an informal manner to see how others feel.
Yeah, let's go ahead and forward it to full council for discussion purposes.
I would not be opposed to that. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms.
I think it's also worth noting, we did discuss, but in the information that Mr. Madden provided, what we like to call our sister cities, Simpsonville and Mountain Inn. I was surprised that neither one of those cities have an option for remote in access for their meetings. I know we all did during COVID, there was special circumstances. So I think that's worth noting as well.
Thank you, Ms. King. No, I thought that was odd as well. I think as well. Mr. Madden, what's your policy with your department heads? Is that stated in policy that they have to attend?
No, right now, most of the department heads all department heads have the option of attending in person or via Zoom. The city is still operating under an emergency order by the court system for this space here. And so that's kind of how we're handling it in-house.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate how many department heads. Yes, Ms. Guzman.
Okay. So I know this ordinance was created in 2013. Is it something that we need to amend this ordinance, amend the wording, get rid of the ordinance, put in for the special call meetings that come up when people may be on vacation or whatever and can't attend in person?
Well, as I understand, the special call meetings are already in a provision that you would be allowed to vote in or call in. These are for regular schedule, correct?
That's correct.
I know there was some discussion about adding some more wording to this ordinance 753 regarding extenuating circumstances. So is this something that committee needs to consider, needs to go to full council for more input on wording or what to do with this ordinance?
I think that's the question for me. As I look at it, if we want to take out such as or to cleanly define what extenuating circumstances are, I think that's the concern is as you look at the such as is clearly defined in 3 specific things, the kind of concern I think that has been voiced is in the event that those 3 specific things aren't being met and still missing a meeting, but being able to call in and have all the same rights and privileges as being in chambers.
Right. And just for the record, I mean, I fully understand that when you are remoting in, it's hard to hear.
Yeah.
It's hard to really vote when you can't hear, you don't really know what you're voting on. So, I mean, I get it. But again, this was written in 2013 when there was a councilman who was ill, so. That's all.
And I think he absolutely fell under the extenuating circumstances. But, perfect. Okay, Ms. King, what's your desire? You desire to move forward for discussion purposes only?
Mr. Chair, yes, I'd like to make the motion to forward to council for their input and recommendation only, for information purposes to council and to get their input on ordinance section 2-33.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Carried unanimous. Very good. Thank you, Ms. King. Thank you, Ms. Kuzma. That was the only item we have. Our next item will be public comment. That seems to be attending, so next item is going to be committee concerns. Anything from this committee? Very good. What do I hear on adjournment?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second on adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
This is officially adjourned at 9:12. The next court meeting is.
All right, we're going to go ahead and call the July 12th, 2021 EPD committee meeting together. It is 9:14. Everybody's here. We're going to go ahead and hit our first public comment period. Do we have public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. What do I hear on reading and approval of minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved as submitted. Reports, communications from city officers. Mr. Madden, you're pitching for Mr. Broad tonight.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The community development budget is in line because it just started earlier this month, but for last year it closed out well. So there's nothing else to report on the community development budget.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Madden. We don't have any unfinished business, so that's going to take us to item 6A, resolution for agreement with Crawford Strategies. And you want me to take that, or you going to get it?
I can, Mr. Chair. So council has had a number of executive sessions to receive briefings on potential branding and marketing efforts by a firm. So what you have before you is an agreement based on those discussions that are being presented to council with the recommendation of approval via resolution. The funding associated with the agreement is available in the current budget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madden. Hearing that, do we have a motion for?
I'll make a motion to send this to full council for approval and consideration and approval.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzma. We have a second.
Second.
We have discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We're moving that one on to full council. Brings us to our next item, which is the maintenance agreement with the South Carolina Department of Transportation. Ooh, this will be.
Yes, so Chairman, members of the committee, the city has a contractual arrangement with Centerpoint LLC for the construction of the pedestrian bridge CenterPoint has an agreement with UIG, which is the contractor for the bridge. They've submitted the plans for permitting for the bridge to the Department of Transportation. It's strongly encouraged from the discussions the city has had with CenterPoint and with UIG to have a maintenance agreement in place prior to the construction commencing and prior to SCDOT providing a permit for the work. So what you have in your agenda packet is a draft agreement with the Department of Transportation that was redlined with some suggested changes to the agreement for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. And if you're just getting an opportunity to go through this, one of the changes that Mr. Madden made, and it's very consistent through the agreement, is specifying that this is being done via the development agreement that was already established and DBA. And I think that Mr. Madden was right in noticing that. There was one piece that I wanted to comment on in particular, and I'm scrolling down right now. On page 28 at the bottom, we have section 18, future moving of encroachment. If you'll notice, one of the changes that Mr. Madden highlighted was striking section B. But I think if we move up one section to section A, there's some concerns there as well. Primarily because of the cost associated. If you'll take a look at the second sentence of that subsection A, if and when the bridge and its associated approaches to structures must be altered or removed, the highway and facilities shall be immediately restored to their original condition at the city's expense. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know how, if the bridge is required to be modified or altered to meet DOT's needs, then it should be the city's responsibility to financially meet those needs. I think if we have to deal with another widening of I-385, while we should likely welcome it, that should not be an expense of the city. So I would actually move to amend the agreement as presented to strike the second sentence of subsection A of section 18. That was a formal motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion to amend, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, and we have amended this, and we're now back to the agreement as amended. What are the thoughts on committee of this agreement with DOT?
I move that we forward to full council the amended agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzner. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Yes, Mr. Cradle.
If there's vehicular damage to the bridge, whose responsibility is that? Is that ours? Is it insured? How does that work?
It would be the city's responsibility. The bridge is being considered as the city is the owner of the bridge. So of course we will have insurance to assist, but if somebody damaged the bridge, it would be the city's responsibility to repair it.
Of course, after the hopefully insured.
Yes.
Any other discussion? All right, now we will vote on the agreement as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and we're forwarding that to full council as amended. Brings us to our second public comment period. Do we have any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right. What do I hear on committee concerns? What do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're done. 9:22. Thanks.